In the heart of Moldavia, where traditions and superstitions wove a rich tapestry, my granddad's childhood stories unfolded like pages from a dark and captivating folk tale. Born into a world brimming with ancient rituals, he, along with his friends, attended gatherings that danced on the edge of the supernatural. Yet, little did he know that one haunting encounter, witnessed at the tender age of 14, would etch itself into the fabric of his existence, shaping his beliefs until his final breath. The villagers held fast to the ominous lore of the Strigoi, a malevolent force believed to bring misfortunes upon those unfortunate enough to cross its path. These undead creatures were said to unleash havoc, from drinking cattle's blood to tormenting villagers with drought, hail, and even death. The superstition held that those who committed crimes, died violently, or endured traumatic sickness might transform into Strigoi. My granddad's story begins during sowing season, when most villagers would be working on their field plots. Some of them had plots that were further away from the village, so they would travel in carriages and spend days or even weeks there plowing and sowing. They would set up tents to protect them from the weather, and they would gather supplies to last them for as long as they needed. It was mostly men that were strong enough to work, while the women and elder men stayed behind in the village taking care of the house and the animals. A young man named Peter was just starting his own family. He had a young wife who recently gave birth, a small cottage, and inherited a little plot of land that was the furthest away from the village. So he set up his horse, his carriage, and when time came, he left his wife and newborn at home, and went to sow the field all by himself. About a week after, Peter's horse was spotted running through one of the neighboring plots. The horse pulled behind him a stake-tethered rope, so the neighbor assumed the horse must have broken loose. Deciding to return the horse back to Peter, the neighbor straddled his own horse and went looking for him. He searched his tent, he went up and down his field plot, but he couldn't find him anywhere. He thought Peter might be in the woods, looking for his horse, and that come nightfall, he should be back. So he decided to wait for him there. But nightfall came, and then morning, and Peter still didn't return. Before alerting the other villagers, the neighbor decided to fetch some water from Peter's well as he was running out. A few steps before reaching the well, a foul smell hit him. It was the smell of decay. Inside the well lay Peter's body, and he was dead for days. It was assumed all the work and heat weakened him and that he lost his balance when he was fetching water, falling into the well. His demise was slow and excruciating. His nails were broken and bloodied from struggling for days to climb back up. The sun burned his skin during the day and he faced harsh cold during the night, awake for days until he finally succumbed to exhaustion and drowned. Upon returning his body home, Peter's wife was shocked. Not only because of his death, but she could swear that he came home the night before. She claimed she was awakened in middle of the night by a wailing sound and saw her husband entering the horse's stable. She figured sickness might have struck the horse and her husband was tending to him, so she went back to sleep. She woke up in the morning and noticed her husband's side of the bed was wrinkled, the bedroom door was open and there was mud on the floor. She assumed he woke up early and went out with business. She was so convinced that her husband did in fact return that she even had food set up for him on the table when the villagers knocked at her door. Rumors of Peter's transformation into a Strigoi spread like wildfire, prompting the villagers to take the necessary measures. They nailed his clothes to his casket, put a clove of garlic under his tongue, performed the sermon and splashed his body with holy water. Not long after his funeral though, cattle started getting weaker and weaker, stopped producing milk, villagers started hearing wailings during the night and many other misfortunes. My granddad said that he was outside one night and he heard some rustling in a bush. A pungent, nauseating odor filled his nostrils, making him gag. He knew better not to fool around, so he didn't check the rustling and ran toward his house. As he was running, he heard the most unsettling scream. A sinister, out-of-this-world wailing that sent shivers down his spine and lingered in his mind for years after. Terrified by everything happening, the villagers decided to exhume Peter's body, and when they took the lid of the casket off, everybody gasped. The sight defied the laws of nature. Peter's body didn't show any signs of decomposing, he had blood around his mouth and his clothes were no longer pinned to the casket. As a desperate measure, they decided to take an old man's advice. As gruesome as it sounded, they removed Peter's heart, burned it and drank the ashes. The haunting echoes of this tale transcend generations, lingering in the traditions of that Moldavian village. Even today, the practice of exhuming bodies suspected of Strigoi transformation endures, an eerie testament to the indomitable power of folklore, belief, and the relentless pursuit of protection against the unknown.